Welcome to the Builder of Choice Insights podcast, breaking down the silos to build a team that focuses on collaboration. To become a builder of choice, you must establish yourself as a leader in your market by creating and fostering relationships with your employees, trade partners, and customers. Being organized and disciplined with your systems, processes, and procedures makes you the builder everyone wants to work with. Leading your team to be a builder of choice sets you apart from your competition, giving you a competitive advantage. The Shinn Group is passionate about helping you become the builder of choice in your market by focusing on tried and true principles. If you want to continue your learning beyond today, we have several programs available for you. Join us in one of our several live events by visiting our website, theshinngroup.com, for current class schedule and other opportunities. The Builder of Choice will always cover topics that help you become the builder of choice in your market. Today, we're talking about the importance of leadership to unite your team for a single goal. I'm Emma Jane, president of the Shinn Group and host of the Builder of Choice podcast. And I'm here with Paul Winegar, COO of Willow Branch Homes. Paul has played an integral part in breaking down silos to create a unified team focused on building a builder of choice company. Welcome, Paul, and thank you for joining me today. You've been with Willow Branch for about 12 years now, is that correct?
Yeah, I've been over 12 years, almost 13.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Can you share a little bit about your journey, how you came to Willow Branch, and a little bit about your time there?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the home building industry for about 20 years, just a little over 19 to be more exact, and started with the National Homebuilder in the warranty department, and I moved around to a custom home builder. And when I moved to Nashville about 13 years ago, I found Willow Branch and the owner, and we've been building a pretty successful business for those last 11 to 13 years, and just trying to grow with this amazing market we have here.
Yeah, Nashville's been a hot market for a long time. So that's you've had quite the adventure there, I'm sure.
Yes, we have. We've seen a year with 70 houses, a year with 100, and back down to the 80s the next year. And then you jump all the way into the 120 closings a year. And it's been an adventure, but it's been amazing.
Oh, that's great. Well, as we were discussing the topics for this podcast, we talked a little bit about that previous podcast I did with Kim Cobb from Plans to People. And we talked about how she was managing a production team. And one of the things we talked about was how do we elevate to that next level, the leadership level, and how that impacts the rest of the team. When we were talking about that, we talked about breaking down the silos and bringing it across the whole entire organization and making it one common goal. And that was something you got really excited about, because you said that that was actually a task that you were given to figure out how to get your organization on one page. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. We were a company operating in, 7 or 8 years ago, 50 to 60 homes, and it was very manageable, and you could have a smaller team. And as you grow and you start building a lot pipeline in front of you, you have to either be really prepared for that or react to not being prepared sometimes. And I think we were the latter, which is okay. You at least have the opportunity in front of you, but we found ourselves having to find a common goal between our land development, our construction department, our real estate sales for the new homes. And it was probably discovered about 4.5 years ago when we decided we needed to become unified and have one goal in mind.
What were some of the triggers that made you guys, because a lot of times you can be going and you're so busy you don't even take time. And I'm not talking about you in general, the proverbial you spend all of this time being busy and not focused on what's really important in your organization. What were some of the things that came bubbling to the surface that made you and your leadership team realize that it was time to start refocusing and identify what your problems were?
Sure. A high level, I think we discovered our construction timelines weren't getting met properly. We are a part of, or have been a part of Shinn group, builder groups, and they've taught us a lot, how to get our cycle time down, how to get our profit margins measured properly. And when we took a real hard look at it a few years ago, we said, we're not meeting our construction timelines, which is costing us profit. So let's look there. And then we realized our budgets weren't going right. And it was kind of like you said a minute ago, we were very busy in the moment trying to grow a company we had lots of direction. We had lots of land in front of us, but we didn't have a lot of organization to keep us going. We saw a decline in team morale. We think people like to work here, but if we just got stuck sometimes, got in our own way. We weren't making homeowners' expectations the way we set them, and we realized we had to do something.
So was there a point before you said you were building a certain number of homes and you were kind of good there, and then all of a sudden you grew? So was it a result of your growth, or was there other factors that came into play when you realized that you weren't as efficient as you had originally thought you might have been?
I think combination. Yes, we maybe jumped really quick from 60 to 70 homes a year to over 100, just over 100 in a year's time. So we knew it was coming. We did our forecast. We knew it was coming. I think we planned poorly from an operations standpoint to be ready for that growth. We knew we needed people, but I think what we lacked and what we really discovered 4 or 5 years ago was process. Not that we didn't know how to build a house or how to sell a house or how to budget a house. It was lack of documented processes that led to unorganization when we're building at a more rapid pace and selling at a higher volume.
And that's interesting you say undocumented processes. So when you look back now, what kind of questions would you have asked yourself back then to make sure that you were prepared for the growth? And how would a documented processes helped?
I think I probably would have asked myself, what do we need to do this? And not from a people standpoint. I think that's where organizations and sometimes leaders usually go, like, what do we need to accomplish that? How many people do we need? And I lean on process, because you can't ask somebody to do something and expect it to be done the right way if you don't have it written down. And I don't mean from a perspective of write every step, wake up at 8 a.m., arrive at work at 8:30. Give them a guideline of what to follow and trust them to do what they know to do. Put people in the right departments, put them where their strengths lie. If you've got a purchasing guy that has a passion for actually being in the field, he's probably in the wrong spot. So it's really just finding the right organization, using the right tools, putting those processes together, and then putting the people where they thrive and where they can be trusted to do their job.
That's great. And one of the things when we were talking, I'm glad you brought up the point about putting the people in the right seats. One of the things when we were talking to prepare for this, you mentioned that you had to revisit your org chart, and that was a huge piece of the changes that you had to make. What were some of the things that you did with the organization chart, and how did that impact the direction of your change to improve as a builder?
Yeah, we use a number of tools, processes like we discussed. But once we determined our processes, then you can determine what seats or positions you need, right? So I can't say I need 3 purchasing agents if the process only calls for 2. So you have to evaluate what each person can do from a position and hire the right person. So it allowed us to really understand how many people we needed, and not just sit and wait for I need 5 superintendents because I have 25 houses under construction in one neighborhood. It's how many houses can a person handle following our process. So we took that org chart and we built a whole entire structure, obviously, but we built teams. inside that. So we said, what does a construction team look like to accomplish this, and what are they responsible for? And we organized all that together, and we built teams that thrived in a process and knew what each person was supposed to do and what they were accountable for every day.
That's amazing. So what brought you from, what kind of questions were you asking initially? Because I love how you thought, I love the questions that you're asking. I think a lot of times, and it's funny, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. It was a Drucker quote, a Peter Drucker quote, and it was saying that it's not about getting the right answer, it's about asking the right question. And I don't remember exactly how the quote went, but the most dangerous thing is answering the wrong question. So making sure that you're asking the right questions. How did you, as a leadership team, focus in on what the right questions were, and how deep did you go into that discovery to figure out how you were going to organize your company?
I'm gonna just lean back and go back to a couple minutes ago on process. If that's really the biggest thing, I think process equals a great culture and a great profit in return. So I just fall back on that every time. But you just have to dive deep into what needs to be done to accomplish each step. And if you write a construction process or the production field process, how does that work? When does it enter the field's hands? When does the superintendent touch it? Is there a project manager that's overseeing the budget? You just have to step through every little intricate piece. And then you say, if I have one person doing this, and that could be permitting and the starts process, the next person is the superintendent. So they take a contract, turn it into a permit, and then they turn it into superintendent. And the superintendent is now not worried about what the purchasing department did, what the permit start coordinator did. They're worried about what they can control in their field and on the job every day. And if you give every individual that opportunity, they do a lot better. And we had to ask a lot of questions. That's, how many, I think the biggest question, I said it a minute ago, it's not always how many people you need, it's what do those people do? And I think we had the same amount of people when we were done going through our transition of implementing all this, but it helped us understand where those people should go.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily overhire and have too many people doing the same thing. Most people can't afford to have a superintendent doing 5 homes. They need to do 15 to 25, depending on the type of construction it is. So we had to ask ourselves really tough questions and really sit down and be transparent with everyone and what our change looked like and how we were going about it. And we were able to reallocate some people into different positions that they may not have ever thought of. And then we had to find some new people too, because change is hard.
Yes. Yeah. It is hard. And you mentioned in our discussion before about accountability. And that was something that you were struggling with as an organization prior to this transformation of your organization. Can you share a little bit about what that was like and how you changed from not being super firm on accountability to where you are today, and what the impact has been on your organization now that you're focused on making sure that people are held accountable?
Sure. Yeah, that's probably the toughest discovery as someone leading an organization, especially the operations side like myself, is you have to look back at yourself and say, who caused this? And it's unfortunately back on you. And that's step one, right? Is it admitting and then discovering that you are causing some of those issues by not holding people accountable. But back to some of those questions we had to ask ourselves: how do you hold someone accountable if you didn't give them the process or the tools to be successful? And once we did that, got through that really tough decision-making part, and we put the processes together, we went from, okay, here's your construction or your purchasing or your sales process, to, all right, now you know how to follow that. Here's the metric we're going to measure you by that you can say, this is what I did this week, and I know I did my job right, or I didn't get it done. Let me highlight an issue and bring it back to the team. So it really helps when one process is evolved and created, put into place, but then measuring people on a weekly basis for the tasks that they're needed to be accomplished by each person. And then we implemented weekly meetings. Every team had their own weekly meeting. They were mandatory. And we looked at your scorecard, what the metrics were. We looked at what you were supposed to accomplish last week. And then they solved issues for the most of the time. And if you're using those metrics and you're using the process to highlight issues, you're usually having a pretty good 1 to 1.5 hour meeting every week and really becoming successful.
Wow. And how did that, so a couple things. First of all, what system, I know you and I talked, you used a structure to help you get those meetings going. And so in combination with some of the Shinn metrics that you have, you also used EOS. And I know several builders are using that same process. Can you share a little bit about how marrying those two things together helped in the success of this program?
I think we talked about it a little bit a few days ago. Shinn provides a lot of tools and a path for you to be successful. And you have to take that and apply it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us in the builder groups and a lot of us maybe not in the builder groups that have our own metrics may not take that application and actually put it to work. They know, I really need to dip my 50% cost of goods and my 20% land to get my 70% and 30% gross. Mm-hmm. That sounds great, right? And we sat in Shinn meetings, and one another discovery we had finally was we were tired of being on the bottom half in our group. We wanted to be better. This is you have to an extent, but it was a competition to us too. We wanted to be as good as the guys in the top half. So we brought EOS in, and that helped us take those metrics and put them in places. For example, the 50% cost of goods, scorecard item for our purchasing department, starting margin, finishing margin. What do those look like? Are we starting at 50% cost of goods? Land department, where's our land coming in? Can we value engineer these lots back to 20%, or are we going to have to get our cost of goods in this community to 47% because our land's 23? So really using a lot of metrics on the financial side, but mainly on the profit side, to understand and be transparent with our team to help them see our goals. Because if you have goals as a leadership team or a leader and you don't express them to anybody else, you're not going to be successful. You have to have your assistant superintendent and your warranty technician and your purchasing manager and your VP of construction all have to understand this common goal. Back to that earlier question, if you have a common goal that you finally find as a team, you have to express it all the way through the company so we started quarterly meetings where we went over everything and people understood we were off on our margins this quarter. We were up on our margins the next quarter, and we attributed why we got there. So we shared things with them that we'd never shared before. Sometimes you feel, I can't tell people what we're making. You can tell them. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And what was the change in behavior or ownership of their positions once they knew what they were actually fighting for or where the goal was?
Yeah. I think you quickly discover when we sat everyone down, had our first company meeting, we said, this is where we're going. This is the direction we're taking. Everybody's excited. 6 months in, a year in, you start to see the attitudes of people who don't want to be held accountable, that want to follow their own process. And they usually weed themselves out, but you do have to make tough decisions from time to time. They're great people. We've always had great people here, but sometimes they're not good fits. And you have to make that based on what you want your culture to be. And so once we got to the right team, you could really see people understanding the common goal. What are we accomplishing this week? What's our goal this quarter? To how many starts we have to get this month, even if it's just for your community as a community team, or you've got a purchasing manager that has to have his budgets ready for the community startup that's going to kick off a model home opening, and everybody just finally finds themselves on the same page. And when you're at a company gathering, people are having a good time. They can discuss these things and say what issues they ran into, and they become more of a team and more fluid with each other.
That's amazing. So herein lies the topic that the title is like working across the silos and working across teams and the functions of the organization. You started to see everybody working together to solve problems to reach the common goal of the organization. Would that be an accurate statement?
I 100% agree. I think thinking back on our conversation from a few days ago, we're talking about silos, and I made a note. I think our morale was low at one time, and we got to a point where there are almost no silos in a bad way, where different departments were managing other departments, and they just kind of, it's back to where I said we just got in our own way. We weren't organized. We weren't doing things with purpose. We weren't following a process. And when we established silos to an extent of your purchasing, your construction, your sales, your accounting, and then we integrated process, you write in your process how accounting works with purchasing and how construction works with purchasing and sales. And you, as you create silos, you also break them down at the same time. But you give people that purpose that I've mentioned.
That's interesting. I've heard somebody say to stay out of somebody else's backyard and tend to your own backyard. Mm-hmm. It sounds like what you had happening was everything. Nobody was doing anything in the same. They weren't rowing in the same direction. Correct. And so you had your accounting team messing around with the production team's backyard, and the purchasing teams and the productions messing with purchasing, and you got all these people not shining they're like not turning the mirror back on themselves to look at what's going on in their own backyard. They're blaming everybody else for what's not going right. Is that kind of what it turned out to be?
That's pretty accurate. And we took all of what we did between using Shinn metrics applied through EOS, and we gave everyone a laser focus. Superintendent, you know what you're doing. Accounting manager, you know what you're doing. And then when you sit in a meeting together and you have that conversation, it's a very easy conversation. It's not combative because you know where your lane is, you know where your focus is supposed to be, you know what you're responsible for every day.
Right. And then you're able to hold each other accountable because you understand what each department is responsible for and how you're a customer of each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's 100% right.
That's awesome. Question. It sounds like it was a big task. And we talked about this too. Like a lot of times you start a change and you're like, I just for a whole week did this one thing. Why don't I see a change yet? How long was this process for you? And how did you guys stay focused and motivated to continue growing in that path so that you would ultimately reach the goal of becoming literally a builder of choice?
Sure. So it took about a year and a half to really get through that whole change process, from implementing processes and scorecards and org charts. But the way we stayed focused and the way it was told to us would be best is, as a leadership team, we operate in that EOS world, in that accountability world on our own for 3 to 4 months. And then we take it to our newly organized org chart. We take it to the next level down. And then we work with them for 3 or 4 months. And then we go down to the next level. So we had goals in mind. We set goals. We said, okay, we're going to do this on our own. We're going to figure this out. And then we can take the message down. Then they can take it down further. And we did it all as a group. We didn't make mid-level go down to the superintendents and the warranty techs and everybody, but we did it with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we saw was a more well-received message than if you just make somebody else do it. We're
Right.
willing to do the same things that everybody else is in the company. And through some of this process, I didn't forget what I had been doing years ago, but I was in the field every day almost with every house, every superintendent, and making sure things were changing without implementing some of those things that we had started as a leadership team. And it shows people that if you're willing to do what they do, that they'll really get in gear and see the outcome that they want to see, or the end goal is in sight.
Well, and I'm thinking back to, we had Stephen Covey at our executive summit this last year, and I also got the pleasure of sitting in a team meeting where Stephen Covey was presenting at one of our builders, and got to see the speed of trust. So I got to see both presentations, and and I don't remember which one this was in, but one of the types of leadership he talked about was modeling, and it sounds like that is what you were doing as a leadership team, is that you were modeling the behavior, you were modeling the direction you wanted your organization to go. And you made sure that that process was going to be in place and was working efficiently and effectively before you brought it down to that next level. And then you worked through that next level together to help them come along. And you didn't leave them to figure it out on their own. You modeled that leadership trait and that that behavior, and then they were able to continue working that through the organization.
Yes, we had to do almost everything ourselves, with mainly the change and finding that common goal. We had to do that ourselves to be able to understand it. Mm-hmm. We had to do some of those tasks that we used to do years ago ourselves too, to really remember what's going on, because when you have to write out a brand new org chart or accountability chart, you have to understand everything that has to be done, and it's really hard just to write that down on paper. So to write it down, to divide up the task, to divide up what everybody has to do, you have to go do that sometimes yourself and really understand, kind of be in their shoes and see what they're doing. Our CEO was in the purchasing department on a daily basis. I was in the construction operations. Finance, CFO was in our accounting department every day, and just understanding and then helping pay bills and helping, budget a house.
Yeah.
We all three worked with our sales team and tried to build a new sales process. So we knew what happened when a lead came in. And if we didn't understand each one of those things with them, we couldn't have written this out and done it.
Oh, that's amazing. And it sounds like it was very rewarding for you as a leader in the organization. And I imagine it's the same for the rest of your leadership team, that they feel it was a very rewarding process at the end. It was probably very frustrating and very challenging as you guys were in the trenches and trying to figure it out. I'm sure there were days where you're like, are we even getting anything accomplished? How did you stay focused and disciplined? Like, were you so focused on that end goal that you were like, every day when you got up and came to work, you're like, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And on the hard days, how did you get through those hard days to keep focused?
I think as a group, we helped each other. Honestly, we knew what we could do. We knew the kind of people we had here and what they could accomplish. We knew if we had to do some rebuilding, we were going to do it together. We're a really strong team. So it was very easy for us to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if I had a rough day in the field, I just brought it into that weekly meeting. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. Hey, maybe we need to make a change with the guys. They're great people, but maybe they need to move on and we need to bring somebody in with more experience. And they help you kind of talk through that and see through it, because I'm sure you've heard it in some of your classes with superintendents and even purchasing side. Especially in the construction field, if you're walking a house, you're usually just looking right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And what you have to do is have somebody else help you look around and see the other things around you. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's there on your team saying, hey, this is tough, but look over here. Mm-hmm. This guy's doing great. when's the last time you had to go visit him? 6 months in, you're like, oh, I haven't actually been to his job sites in 2 months. And
Yeah.
his cycle time's down, and you start seeing those things accomplished, and you have strong people around you to help you push through it. It's very helpful to have a leadership team.
Yeah.
I'm sure for some people it's very hard to be the leader, but if
Mhm.
you surround yourself with a couple of people that can really have your back and help you see the light, that's very key in this process.
That is, I think, hopefully people are writing that down, because there's so many people that it's a one-man show, or,
Yeah.
a husband and wife team, or there's just two partners. And it's really important to have a team of people to help you stay focused and keep lifting you up and have that extra support to keep you shored up to continue on the process, because it can be very frustrating. And when you lose that growth mindset, or you fall into that pit of just like, it's not working, you have to be able to change that language. And sometimes you need somebody else to do that for you, help you do that.
Yeah, we found that to be the case for sure. For a time, until we created our larger leadership team as an executive leadership team, we called it, after we finished our org chart, the three of us were able to grow our leadership team to the department heads, the
Mm.
VPs and the managers of those departments, because we had to bring their expertise into that room to make company decisions. So once you create these things and you implement these things month over year, you really start to see what they bring to the table. And if you trust them, trust is key. You hire the right person, you trust them to do what they know what to do. They're going to bring you the right issues. They're going to do their scorecard properly. You will end up looking back and saying, man, we used to make 10% net profit, and we're making over 17% net profit over 3 years later. The change of things like that just is, it's very exciting to be able to see a group of people do that together. And it was a large group, and we had a lot of people. So
Yeah.
it's a very fun thing to see people come together and help you accomplish that.
That's amazing. Well, and I was going to ask you, what were some of the metrics? Because you did mention some net profit metrics, but what were some of the metrics that were key that you saw improve over that time, that you think, this is why we did this? This is our win. Obviously net profit, but there were probably some other
Sure.
key indicators that you're like, yeah, this really worked.
I think what we saw most was our cycle time in construction. Second, we saw our permitting cycle time. So in construction, to be fair, before I say this, we were coming out of COVID. So we know
Yes.
almost everyone had really tough construction cycle time. But even after that, a little bit, as we finish this process and start to see the fruit of the labor, is you would have townhome buildings that would take 320 days to be built to down to 95 days to be built.
Wow.
Then you'd have our cycle time for permitting. We have a person that's specializing in getting our permits and helping us get organized before the job starts. Now they know the person of the municipality. They know who to talk to. They know the subs and vendors they need before they can apply for a permit. And they're very focused in, and you see a permit timeline of 65 days go down to 30, 35 days. And those are some of our better municipalities. But you start seeing those things, you really understand what you're doing is working, and you can start to scale up. You can say, okay, now I know this team can handle X amount of homes per year. And then you have your org structure where you say, okay, we're gonna really ramp up in 3 years, so let's build another team. And then you can go do that, and then they can be successful. So it's becomes rinse and repeat for you, and really gets you excited to be able to sit back as a leadership team and say, here's how we can plan for the future. And we don't have to grind at it anymore. It becomes doable, it becomes manageable, scalable.
That's awesome. And there's something you just said, Emma, my mom would always say, before you hire people, examine your processes, procedures, and systems, and make sure those are right, and then build. And I know like there's a lot of builders right now that, or over the last couple of years, that are like, we just want to build, we want to build, and they'll build despite what their profit margins are saying, and they just keep building. They're not focused on their efficiencies, their effectiveness of of the process. What would you say to somebody that's like, oh, well, we'll deal with net profit later?
If you're telling yourself that, it's too late. I'd say that. But you can always fix it. I think if you see growth ahead, you see opportunities in front of you, and our business is, production home builders, mostly even custom builders. You see a land opportunity in front of you, and it's going to bring you, in 2 years, it's going to bring you a bunch of starts. You have to be ready, not from a personnel standpoint. If you're building 20 houses and you can jump to 50, that's a manageable jump if you're putting together what you need in advance. You can't throw a couple of superintendents at it and maybe an admin person to take care of permits without them walking in the door and you saying, here's what you need to do. And then honestly, one of the bigger things is, especially with growth and adding people to your process, is core values. Establish them, hire by them, fire by them. That was a big part. One of the biggest tools we put in place too, that really helped us understand who we were as a company and what kind of people to bring in too.
I love that you said that. That's one of the things I keep telling everybody. I'm like, know who you are as a builder. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and Emma, your mom is right. And we're a perfect example. We didn't do that. We didn't follow that advice. We just said, get these people in here and let's build these houses. Well, when you start stumbling upon your own feet, you have to reset. And sometimes that means you lose people. Sometimes that means you have an off year, but it's worth it to see what could happen down the road.
Yeah. And you don't have to right size your team in the future if you right size your systems and then add people as your systems are becoming stretched out. Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I do want to ask you one thing. What is the one thing that somebody's sitting with us today, listening to our conversation? What's the one thing you hope they take away with them today?
I wish I could do one, but I'll do two. Okay.
I'll let you do two.
First, evaluate yourself as a leader. You have to take time, even if you plan it, every 3 months, every 2 months, evaluate yourself. Are you giving people the right tools? Are you holding them accountable for the process that you put in place? And if you can do that on a regular basis and score yourself high enough to feel good, then keep doing what you're doing. And then 2, establish process, establish metrics, establish accountability, and you'll be successful. And I don't mean just to put a rigid process in place and don't let anybody step out of line anytime. Put a process in, get the right people, trust them to do what you hired them to do, let them be accountable, and they will thrive in that environment. And if you can do those 2 things, I think you can knock it out of the park.
That was amazing. I feel like that deserves a mic drop.
Just an earbud. Just an earbud.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today and your wisdom and your journey over the last few years with your company. I think that's fantastic. And I hope everybody who joined us to listen to you today in our conversation takes a lot of this back and is able to make changes or implement, good processes in their company to help not just themselves and the company, but help their whole team win, because that's what it's all about. So,
well, thanks for having me. It was amazing. It was a great time. And if you're listening, talk to Emma Jane, talk to Shinn. They can get you the right path.
Thank you so much, Paul. I really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you, all of you who joined us today, for taking the time to spend with me and Paul. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or listen to Builder of Choice Insights podcast on Spotify, Audible, or Apple at Be the Builder of Choice. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks for watching or listening. Give us a like and leave a comment. And if you thought of somebody, be sure to send them a link so they can listen too. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. Is there a specific topic or special guest that you want to hear about? Let us know. Did you like what you heard? Then I've got great news for you. You can listen to this episode along with many more at Builder of Choice Insights, where I talk with industry experts on crucial concepts that help builders become the builder of choice. If you don't want to miss this next episode, then be sure to turn on your notifications, hit that like button, and subscribe.